Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Paul Victor Timms, although you probably know me better as Victor the Magician, the persona or set of personas that I created for performing magic. Now, I'm staying with family at the moment, which means that I don't have access to the complicated, powerful video editing software that I usually use to create title sequences and introductions to the magic tricks that I perform. So rather than trying to go into a trick without my usual production values, what I decided to do instead was try something a bit different, to create a video essay on the nature of magic. You see, in conversation I've often described magic as one of the great working class art forms, specifically, or albeit, a lost or unacknowledged working class art form. But what exactly do I mean by this? Well, part of it's to do with the way magic came about, its origins. You see, the very first factual, definitely a real thing reference that we have to the practice of magic and sleight of hand dates back to 65 AD, and is contained within the moral epistles of the Stoic philosopher Seneca. Now, Seneca basically wrote a lot of those on the nature of his society and sort of trying to improve it in various ways. And he mentions in passing street performers, magicians, who are basically Roman commoners performing to make a living on the streets of major cities. There is an even earlier reference to a magician, albeit a fictional magician before that, which dates back even earlier to around, or as early as, 2050 BC. And that reference is the Westcar Papyrus, which contains a story about a magician named Dedi. Now, Dedi is fictional, and within his story is ascribed actual magical powers, but the feats that he performs are recognisable as basically magic tricks that we have today, or at least in the style of magic tricks that we have today, which suggests that basically the ancient Egyptians, specifically the 13th dynasty ancient Egyptians, because that's when the Westcar Papyrus was written, had a concept of magic, had a concept of street magicians, because that's how Dedi is described. He's a working class commoner, basically. Obviously they didn't have a concept of proletarianism or working classness in ancient Egypt, but the term they use again is commoner. And he is basically an ordinary old guy who performs magic and has extraordinary powers. But it's not just the historic origins of magic that suggest to me its innate working class nature. You see, magic today remains one of the great working class art forms. You see, a painter requires expensive paints and canvases to practice their craft. A sculptor needs tools. Even a dancer whose art is practiced purely with their own body requires space, which can seem like a luxury and can be very expensive in today's crowded, congested cities. All a magician needs is one of these, a pack of playing cards, or some old coins, or a length of rope, or basically any one of a million different ordinary household items that are fairly cheap and can be repurposed to create amazing feats. What's more, many other art forms, again dancing, writing, creating a work of art and painting, often require large investments of formal training. You have to have the money to do the training in a formal environment, and you also have to give up large swathes of your time in large blocks to do it. which is often incompatible with the precarity and unpredictability of working class life. Whereas a magician still needs to invest a lot of time and effort into learning their craft, but it's not formalised. You can learn magic an hour or two at a time from a book or through YouTube tutorials. It's something that you can perfect from scratch without any real formal knowledge. It's something that doesn't require the trappings or funding of a middle-class existence. Now, I've been very lucky. In addition to being a magician, I've also been able to learn the craft of writing without having to go through the usual formal settings, actually. And I've also been able to devote much of my time to learning magic, rather than having to wrestle with the precarity of working class life. Despite the fact that I am from a very poor background, I realise that isn't necessarily apparent from the sort of the propensity to dress in smart suits and the quite close to RP way of speaking that I have. But magic is an amazing form of art that has its origins really with the poorest in society. Not just people like me who have been really jammy, basically, and have been able to devote their lives to it, and to other practices relating to it, but to people who have basically nothing but a pack of cards. And the thing about magic is, you might start off with nothing, but once you've learned it, once you've mastered it, you can be a king. I've been Victor the Magician, and hopefully you'll like this video, and I'll be able to share some more thoughts on magic and its origins at some other juncture. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time for more magic, or possibly another video essay.